Well, hello good people. Part 4 of fixing the Lycoming GO-145. When I bought the Lycoming, it came with 8 of these REM40 spark plugs. They're good plugs, they're the old-fashioned massive electrode type, but I threw 2 of them away straight away because this bottom thread, the main 18mm thread, was damaged, and obviously I didn't want to screw it into the cylinder. In fairness, the chap I bought the engine off didn't try screwing them into the cylinder either, but they went straight in the scrap metal. Along with the plugs was this great big pile of electric spaghetti. These are leads that are shielded for ignition suppression for use with radios. Well, I'm not bothered about radios, and I have a better idea. I had almost the same problem 35 years ago when I was rebuilding my Aronca Champ. I was young, enthusiastic and skint, and 8 new REM40Es were completely out of the question. I got around the problem by fitting NGK A6s, which we had boxes of them in the garage, and making up my own leads. It cost £10 or so for the whole job and worked a treat. Unfortunately, these NGK A6s don't fit the Lycoming because the hexagon is too big. But by complete coincidence and good fortune, several years ago, NGK stopped making the A6 and started making the AB6, which has a smaller hex the same size as on a 14mm plug, and these fit perfectly. If you're wondering about cost, well, as of today, which is mid-November 2025, one REM40E costs £41.90 plus VAT from my local supplier. An NGK AB6 costs £5.32 plus VAT. I needed 2 REM40E, so that would have been over £100. The best thing, of course, is one can use automotive style caps on the plugs. These are non-suppressed, so no resistor in these ones. I use them on the Aronca, they're very good. And automotive lead as well, which again, really good reliable stuff, not expensive. And of course you can life it as well. You can say, well, I'll give it 5 years and then I'll replace the leads. I think this bundle of wire, and there's 10 meters there, cost about £15. For the Lycoming, I'm actually going to use these solder-on ends, just like I have on the Vauxhall and the Peat and Pole Ford. There's no other reason other than I find them aesthetically very pleasing. It's very easy to fit automotive leads into these Bendix scintillers. The electrode here, there's a spare one floating around, where they're the long or the short ones, has an inverse cone inside. So when you poke a wire into it, it actually wants to make a bullseye in the center of the electrode, which is very useful. So taking the automotive lead, one strips about 3/4 inch of insulation off the end, twists the wire and then turn it through 180 degrees. I'm going to tin that in a moment. The fantastic bodge, I know the modern word is hack, but I like the word bodge, is to slide a washer cut from a piece of 1/4 inch inside diameter fuel pipe onto the lead, and then having already fitted the nut and the conical washer that goes behind it, one just slides the whole thing into the magneto, pushes it down and tighten up the nut. With the nut tightened down properly, our little washer made out of fuel pipe compresses, and of course it grips the lead beautifully. It's a splendid bodge. The Lycoming manual has this rather nice photograph showing the leads clipped up and out of harm's way. That's given me an idea. On the back of the British Aronca Jap engine, of course it has dual ignition, there are 3 tubes held with 4 clips. So this tube here takes the top wires to the other side as such. It's held with a clip at each end, and then each side on the same side as the mag, this tube with its clip carries the HT lead to the bottom plug. Now I've got a box full of those clips, and when I say a box full, I mean a box full. I've not counted them before, but a quick glance, 246. The Aronca clips are drilled 3/16, and of course that's a 1/4 inch screw. Anyway, in true Blue Peter style, here's 4 I did earlier. Having had a rummage around in a box of bits, this is a tube that normally goes across the back of the Aronca Jap engine, but it's been very badly stored for many years and it's got a nasty mark in it. So I'm going to cut 4 pieces of this to put inside the clips so the HT leads don't get chewed by the metal. That's all 4 done. In fact, as is, this tube ever only has to carry 1 HT lead, because one goes that way and one goes that way and they never meet in the tube. And so trying to shove 2 through here was a bit of a tight squeeze, like Alfred Hitchcock's trousers. So I squished that one up in the vise, which seems to work very well. I'm going to put a washer between there because it doesn't quite close up. I've got some longer screws to go in here, so I'll put a washer sandwiched between the 2 and a spring washer on top, or shake-proof washer, and a slightly longer screw, and they can all be fitted. Just before I start making ignition leads, I want to look at the inlet pipes. Now, the inlet pipes run between the sump with its built-in spider and the inner ports on each of the cylinders, like so, 2 on the other side. I can't actually fit these until the engine's on the test rig, because at the moment my little stand is in the way. And each pipe at each end is held with a length of 1.5 inch inside diameter rubber pipe. Now this is suffering from a bad case of rigor mortis, so I'll get a new length and cut 8 new pipes. But unfortunately the inside of the pipes, whether you can see that there, maybe you can't, you'll just have to believe me anyway, I've got quite a lot of corrosion. They're not badly corroded, but there's quite a lot of dusty corrosion in there. I tried to get them sandblasted, but the chap who was going to do it was a bit of a nuisance and let me down. So rather than bother someone else who I know does sandblasting, but he's a little way away, I'm going to try electrolysis. So I've got a large tub of water standing here on the top of the table saw, and just behind it there, you can see it in sort of glorious vague vision, is my battery charger. I'm going to put some soda crystals in the water because that helps with the conductivity. You can use table salt, but it gives off chlorine, which I don't think is a very good idea. So soda crystals, I think that's sodium carbonate, gives off carbon dioxide, which is a lot safer. So sacrificial anode, we attach that to the positive lead. So anodes attract, it's the easy way to remember it. And this is the inlet pipe. Cathode, not attractive. So C, what's something that's not attractive beginning with C? I suppose communists. So we take our black negative lead, negative communist lead, attach it to that and turn the power on. I'll admit it's not the most exciting of spectator sports. There's quite a lot of green stuff growing on the anode, which I wonder is copper, because I've used a couple of copper coated mild steel welding rods to connect everything together. There's quite a lot of bubbling going on. I think it's going to take hours and hours. Not half as exciting as electrocuting Ted Bundy. Before I start making the leads, I've taken the tops off the magnetos just to verify the firing order. I'll use this magneto top as it's a little easier to read. The firing order of the magneto is 1, 2, 3, 4, but the firing order of the Lycoming is 1, 3, 2, 4. So I have to make sure I connect number 2 here to the number 3 cylinder and the number 3 here to the number 2 cylinder. Otherwise the thing would be lumpier than school custard. Well, that's everything on and tightened up. I'm going to clip these up a bit more before I run the engine, but obviously I'll probably end up taking a certain amount of things off it again whilst I'm getting it ready to run, so I'm not going to put any tape or clips around now. If you're wondering about the electrolysis, it worked very well. These pipes are now lovely and clean inside, and of course I painted them all and then realised I hadn't filmed it. So let's have a look in the tank, because there's a bonus item. Some time ago I stayed in Mauritania. We arrived there in the evening, and the next morning I opened my curtains to spot the hotel swimming pool. It looked much like this tank. I've turned the electricity off, so let's see what's in here. There we are. It's a complete Austin 7 handbrake assembly. When it went in the tank last night, it was absolutely horrible and very rusty. Now, be careful if you do this electrolysis, make sure you use gloves, because the rusty gunjo that comes off is horrible and it stains absolutely everything. And once you get something out of the tank, wipe it off quickly with kitchen paper is the best thing, or rags that you're going to chuck in the bin straight away. Of course, this handbrake assembly is destined for my cycle car project, but yesterday, before it went in the tank, it was very rusty. I did free it off before it went in, but I wasn't expecting it to look anything like that. The thing with electrolysis is it only attacks the rust. It doesn't attack the metal, and it doesn't attack paint. So it's a really good way of cleaning things up passively. I'm not even going to repaint that. I'm just going to dry it off and coat it with oiled linseed so it doesn't rust again. I'll give the fly-off handle a bit of a shine up on the wire wheel. There's a growing pile of bits for a cycle car next door. We'll have a look next summer. That's a future project. It's tempting to run this without an exhaust, but I don't particularly want the flame issuing out all over the aluminium push rod. I don't think it's particularly good practice anyway. And I found some 1.5" steel pipe. It's quite thick walled, but I think I can make 4 short stubs out of it. There we are, so a length of that pipe cut off and cleaned up on the wire wheel. I could have cleaned it with electrolysis, of course, but I haven't got all day. That fits quite nicely, but obviously I need something to slide over it, so I've cut another ring of pipe, which I'm going to slit and push over the end of this and see if it sits quite nicely on the stub. Well, that worked. I slit the pipe and wrestled it on, and it sits over there. Now, you might spot a little hole there. I don't know whether you can see it or not. There's a tiny hole in the exhaust, which is where the exhaust clamp for the Lycoming version, which is attached to the exhaust pipe itself, goes into the stub. It means the pipe can't fall off. Now, in flight, I think that's a jolly good idea, but of course these stubs are just for ground running. So I think I'm going to cheat. I think I'm just going to tack this on in a few places and then slit it, see if I can't squeeze it in a little bit, and then put a Jubilee clip around it. I think that would do as a stub for ground running. Of course, it's a tractor propeller, so the blast is going to go that way. So if the exhaust comes off, it's probably just going to hit yours truly in the head, which has served me right for making dodgy exhausts. It's not bad, but it's a bit loose. I think I could probably put a few more slits in and try again. That's much better. I found a tin of very high temperature black paint, so it's had a squirt of black paint, and not perfect, but it'll do the job. I've got enough bits all cut out to make another 3 stubs, but unfortunately, I'm afraid I have to stop there. The sordid business of earning a living rears its head again. There's not a lot else left to do on this motor. I need to set the valve clearances. There's a carburetor lurking around under here. It's... You can find those bits. Unscrew. There we are. I should have put it in properly. I did take the top off it the other day. It needs a new gasket and it needs a clean. It's a Stromberg NAS2, which I think was fitted to the Continental A40, definitely fitted to the Oronka E113. I have overhauled one before. We'll take it apart next time. I've screwed an NPT fitting into the oil gallery. I found quite a nice old gauge as well. I think it's off a vintage tractor, but it's ideal. So I thought that could be mounted in a plate up here, along with a couple of magneto switches as well, actually. That would be a neat way of controlling the ignition and checking the oil pressure. As for all the other things, I flew the Oronka last week. The weather's been fairly pants, but last Thursday was lovely. The Vauxhall has been out this evening. My wife needed to get to the back of the Vauxhall shed, and the best way to get to the back of the shed was to move the car. And as the car came out of the shed and it wasn't raining, I went for a belt up and down the lane in the dark. My inner toad is very satisfied. Fred is on his landing gear, and Fred's tremendously bling engine is still safely covered over to protect our eyes. I've been cleaning lots of bits. These are the low engine mounts, cleaned and painted again. It's ready to go back on the aeroplane, but when I put it on, I need to put the plate on the back. This holds the magnetos. And of course, I can't put the engine down once this is on because this sits down below like a keel, although the wrong way round. So I need to dangle it off the crane, put that on, and then put it straight on the airframe. So that's the job for December. Of course, my December roster is a bit of a mess, but there we are. As always, thank you for watching.